Advertising in agriculture is going to be an interesting and exciting topic today because I am not alone. I have consulted a lot of experts to help me in the discussion. Let's hear them introducing themselves.
Hey there, my name is Adam Earhart, and welcome to talking about how to advertise your small business.
Hey there, fellow marketers, Professor Walters here, and today we're going to talk about some of the types of advertising you'll see.
Hi, I'm Alex from HubSpot, and today I'm going to talk to you about persuasive advertising.
As we discuss this topic, I advise you to listen carefully to discussing today, and also don't hesitate to send your feedback or questions through the question box, and also answer the questions on content page, do your quiz, and have a blissful day.
Things about advertising is that it involves you spending some serious money on trying to get some kind of return from it. So we want to make sure that you're doing things correctly and basically setting yourself up for success and maximizing your return on investment. All right, so the very first question that I've got back for you is, what are you trying to sell? You see, when it comes to advertising, there's a lot of business owners that have the understanding or the idea, and a large part of that is partly on my fault and my blame as well by telling everyone that you should be advertising more. But a lot of business owners then hear this advice that they need to be advertising, and they just kind of go off to the races and start advertising. The question that I get in regards to advertising your business is, how much should I spend? What's my budget around advertising? How do I set it? And really, this is going to come down to expectations and the cost of your product or of your service or of your offer, whatever. Next thing that you really need to consider when you're looking at advertising your budget is, who are you trying to sell to? This is all about having that ideal customer avatar in mind. That one kind of representation or fictional character that you view that has the components of that ideal and perfect customer. The kind of customer that you love selling to, that loves what you do, is happy to pay you for the value you provide. Well, really what you want to do here is dial in their characteristics around their demographic details like age, gender, income, occupation, titles, things like that, but also in selecting the right channel or the right platform for your ads, which is my next point here. You see, by far, one of the most important aspects in a successful advertising campaign is choosing the right channel to be advertising on in the first place. If you get this wrong, you end up in what I call the marketing wasteland, which is essentially where you've got a mismatch between what you're trying to sell and where your ideal customers are active. And part of the puzzle is, what exactly are you going to say? What's going to go into your ad? And this part is just as important as who you're trying to reach, because after all, if you put out an ad that's irrelevant or annoying or just really doesn't do anything for your ideal target market, they're not going to take any action. So a few key metrics that you need to understand, and it's going to help you shop around and basically make the right choice for your business.
Advertising in agriculture. Advertising is a favorable representation of products to make consumers and the general public to be aware of a product. Let's take, for instance, Mr. Osifo is a poultry farmer, and I have been producing chicken or poultry belts before, especially for Christmas sales. And my customers, which are the buyers, are not aware that I have just added another breed, which is turkey. And I need to get them informed that I've added the new one, at least to create awareness to my potential buyers that yes, I've added a new breed. Advertising takes place in agriculture because the farmer needs to make the consumers be aware of their product. Here, let's look at the media for advertising in agriculture. We have the internet, vision, radio, the print media, the newspapers, the billboard, the magazines. Let's start with the first one, which is the use of the print media. And these one include the newspapers, the magazines, journals. Some of them have international as well as local coverage, and it can reach a lot of persons or people at a particular time. It actually has a wide variety of reach of people that can actually read, especially for those that are literate And in most cases, the papers are usually colorful and have appealing manner to the consumers that will read them. And information kept in them can be read as many times. Though it has its own disadvantage because it's not all that flexible, because only the literate ones can read the papers. Then, for example, a producer, a farmer like me want to buy a space in newspaper. It's so expensive, which most farmers cannot afford. The second one I'm going to talk about is television. You notice this type of television, the old type of television. It makes use of both audio and visual expression during communication. It has sounds, and most of them these days are color, and you can actually see when people are demonstrating, that is involve action or movement while they are in the television. It shows the message to the target clients or audience, everything about the product you want to actually showcase or advertise. It has its own advantage by attracting large audience, and usually you can reach all classes of consumers, whether illiterate, whether literate, you can reach all classes. Its disadvantage is that it is expensive to buy a slot in the television broadcasting stations, and not only that, electricity is also very rare. You don't always expect light always, yes. So the use of television can be hampered by lack of light or electricity. The next one I want to talk about is the transistor radio. The radio actually have a wider coverage when compared to that of the television. That is to say, you can only hear without seeing the product being advertised. Though it has a wider signal that is almost available in everywhere, every part of the country, whether rural or urban. You usually see radio, even where there are no lights. You can use battery to on or tune into your radio. It's relatively cheap. A lot of persons can afford to buy radio than television. Because it also have a wider reception, so people usually use it and carry it to anywhere. Its disadvantage, like I said before, is just that you cannot see what is being advertised. Another medium I want to talk about is the use of billboards, handbills, posters, t-shirts, cap. These are actually printed leaflets or information written about a product of a farmer. It is used for advertising goods and services to the consumers. Very, very effective. For billboard, you can actually also see and also read. Here, I want to look at types of advertising in agriculture. Now, usually there are three types. We have the persuasive advertising. Also, we have the informative advertising and the competitive advertising. So I'm going to look at them one after the other. Persuasive advertising. Persuasive advertising actually has to do with the ability to woo a customer. It aims at changing the consumer perception and emotion and gradually build up that customer's interest in your product. How do you do this? That would be the question. Now, there are a lot of things as a producer or as a seller you need to do in order to attract customers to buy your product. For example, courtesy. You have to be courteous. You show love, you show kindness, you show that friendliness to a consumer. As they say, consumers are usually right, and they are usually seen as a king. Not really that they are king, but because you need the money from them, you need to treat them as a king or queen. In other words, your interest is really their pocket and not they themselves.
To you about persuasive advertising. As marketers, we know that if we want to persuade an audience, we need to evoke an emotional response from them. But how do you actually do that?
Persuade people to choose your brand versus your competition. This is where you see the ads where like, this is Bob's family goes to the store and spends $25. But at the local big box store, they spent $30. Now you see it's actually better to shop here. And so they're doing that comparison to try to persuade you to come over. And the thing is, sometimes when you use persuasive advertising, it might persuade people to think of your product in a different way. You know, years ago when Old Spice came out with the Old Spice guy, right? I mean, Old Spice was like my grandpa's, you know, deodorant and smell, right? And now they had a whole new advertising campaign to persuade people to think about their products differently. So you might look at it for, you know, repositioning or kind of reprogramming how people look at your products. You might use this in order to get them to switch brands, you know, to your brand from another brand, because sometimes people are very locked in with their brand. So it's going to take you a little bit more. You got to persuade them, give them a reason why they should come over to your side.
Your ability to convince that customer to actually buy what he or she originally did not even think or planned to buy in your store or from the farm. That is a persuasive advertising.
Informing people about the brand, about the company, about the product. What does it actually do? You know, and the thing is, you might see there's important information that they need to know. Maybe it's how this product should really be used. I mean, how many of you have used a product and found out later you were doing it wrong? You're like, oh, if I would have only known. So you might think about advertising that deals with that. Or instead of how they should be using it, maybe you have a new way to use your product. Oh, now Coca-Cola is not just for drinking on its own. Now, why not mix it with Jack Daniels? You see this informative advertising a lot in the earlier stages of the industry life cycle, the product life cycle, because you have to inform people what something is, okay?
It's actually just let them know that yes, either you are still here or these are the new products you have. Usefulness of your product, the location of your farm. The consumers are convinced that this is actually what it gives to the body. Even when you are not ordinarily willing to buy before, you can now buy from that producer.
The third type I want to talk about is this reminder advertising. And reminder advertising, really all it is just reminding people, hey, we're out here. Hey, you can still buy Coca-Cola. I mean, let's be honest. Do you really need an advertisement to persuade you to buy a Coke over a Pepsi? Or do you really need an advertisement to tell you what Coca-Cola is? Oh, this thing called Coca-Cola? I don't know what that is. Of course not. And so what we're doing, and you see this in the maturity phase, you know, especially the later maturity phase, and sometimes the decline phase, you're just reminding people, hey, we're out here. You know, it's like, oh, that's right. I need to pick up the Charmin, right? Like, oh, obviously, you know, you don't need to explain what a toilet paper is, right? No, but you're like, oh, yes, I got to remember to pick those things up. But the ad's just reminding people to keep them top of mind. So when you go to the store, you pick up the Budweiser instead of the Coors. You pick up the Twix instead of the M&Ms and stuff like that. Also, you're reminding customers that really they might need your product. Like, hey, you know, winter driving season's coming. Do you have the salt for the driveway? Do you have your shovel? Do you have your, first aid kit or your emergency kit? Oh, I don't. Thank you for letting me know. You're just reminding them, hey, this could be a time to be there. How many of you wait for those sales that come up during the holidays? Like, oh yeah, now's when I should get my luggage when it's in May and everything's dirt cheap. Thanks for the reminder for that Memorial Day sale luggage. Now, also when you look at reminder advertising, you might remind people where they can buy the product. But also you want to make sure that your customers don't think you forgot them. And so you might use this reminder advertising to remind them that they made the right purchase.
The last one is competitive advertising. This actually is an aggressive type of advertising. It's aiming at competing with fellow producers in the same line of business. That is to say, for example, you are selling similar products. But how will the consumers buy your own product against others? So it's a big question. So there are a lot of things you need to do. Like I said before, for example, during the holidays, you must be in your store 24/7 so that consumers will not come to your store without seeing you. And your attitude of welcoming your consumers or buyers is also an added advantage. If you're always there and they see the product at the right time, they will always want to patronize you against others that will not come to store when it's rainy season or even when the sun is shining. So these are a lot of things that will make consumers to buy more from you that is regular than the other person. Then you can also engage the services of a town crier who will then move from one spot to the other, explaining your product to your prospective consumers. This, you already have an added advantage over others. You can also use radio, television, as we said before. If consumers actually know your store and they are already having what we call brand loyalty to your product, of course, before they can change from your product and your store, it will be very, very difficult. Another area I want to look at now is importance of advertising in agriculture. Prepares a grant for the new product to potential customers that have never used such product before. For example, if my customers here have been using fish, now that fish is very expensive in the market, they will tend to go to a lesser product such as prawn or lobsters such as this, so they can also get the same nutrient they are getting from fish. It also helps to induce new customers to buy the product by informing them of its qualities, since it is possible that some of these customers may change their brand. Or for example, they've been using Semovita before, and there's a new product now which is called Casavita, and they know that it's actually both flour which are meant for swallow. So if they tend to try my Casavita and they know that it's good as Semovita, so they may tend to be using this Casavita even though it's a new product. In other words, they have changed their brand to my own brand. It helps producers to face and overcome competition. Under competitive conditions, it's helps to build up brand image and brand loyalty. For example, these products are popular products, but we know that the first one came before the other, or is more popular than the other. Now, if you go to the store, you want to buy the first one, probably they may give you the second one. They say if it's not Panadol, it is not like Panadol. So no matter what they are giving to you, if it's not Panadol, it's not going to be the exact product of Panadol. So what we are saying here is that even though they are similar, but you need to know as a consumer what you actually wanted, so they can give you the right product. So it's there to build up brand loyalty, because they already know that you have a good product. So that product, the consumers will insist on getting that particular product. Yes, 4. It increases sales volume of farmers, especially with more awareness and better networking. Especially these days, we have internet services. You can post your product over there or make inquiry about your product on how they can get it, either online or both physical. Another important is that advertising broadens the knowledge of the consumers, especially with the aid of internet services these days. It helps to broaden the knowledge and also to reduce stress of either going physical to buy and waste of time. So payment can be made online. Then finally, advertising improves relationship between farmers and the members of the community by eliminating middlemen. Of course, you know what the middlemen can do, thereby increasing costs and creating artificial scarcity of that product. So here the producers can directly sell to the consumers in order to reduce these overburdening expenses that the middlemen will now finally add to the product, thereby increasing the burden of the final consumers.